Local functions can also be used to reclassify a grid based on a table. In this case, the column on the left are the input grids, and as we can see, they're 4 by 4 grids, with each grid cell having its own value. The reclassification table is just 2 columns. The first column is what's coming from the input grid, and the second column on the right is what's going to be going into the output grid. That's the example shown in the top row. In the bottom row, what we see is we're doing something similar, except now we're reclassifying by a range of values. So any value between 0 and 1.5 is going to be reassigned the value A in the output table. This would be similar to the types of reclassification you might have done in ArcGIS Pro, where you're asked for a range of values, and then it gives a new value to each grid cell, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of A, B, C, D, but the same sort of idea. Let's take a look at some examples here. If we have a value of 1, we go to the reclassification table on the top. We see that the new value is going to be X, and that X is put into a new output grid with all the values changed based on this reclassification table. On the bottom, if we have an input value of 5, that value of 5 falls between 3.5 and 10, so the output the output grid will have a value of C in that same location as the 5 in the input table. It's worth mentioning kind of a couple of special cases that go on here with the null. One is if the value is not in the table, such as this -1, there's no -1 in the reclassification table, then that might be assigned a value of null. So the nulls will turn out to be nulls in this case, and in addition to that, on the top row, anything that does not have a value like this -1 will also be converted into a null. On the bottom, we can see that in this reclassification by range, they've accounted for the nulls. So if there is a null value, it's assigned a value of D in the output table. So that very bottom row there, we see the null value in the input table. We look in the reclassification table by range, we see that a null will have a value of D, and that's what's put in the same location in the output table. Another way to reclassify is to reclassify by condition. And this means a conditional statement, which is sort of like an if-then-else statement if you're doing programming. So in this case, we have 3 different layers. Layer A on the top, which is what's going to be evaluated by the statement, and then layer B and C, which is where the outputs are going to be coming from. So the conditional statement is shown at the top, con layer A is less than 3, layer B if it's true, layer C if it's false. For each grid cell in the layer A, we're going to have a new output value in layer B. And here's the way that works for one individual, or 2 individuals examples here. Let's take the one on the in layer A in the lower left first. So that value is 0. We do the comparison. The value of 0 is less than 3. That is true, yes. So then we would go to layer B. We would grab that value from the layer B table, which is Y, and we would put that Y into the output table on the bottom. In the example in layer A of the 5 in the lower right-hand corner, 5 is not greater than 3, so we would go to layer C, since our answer is no, and that value there is A, so we would take that A and we would put the A in the output table. So in the final table, we can have values of X, Y, A, and B, just depending on what the original values were in layer A. This is a very powerful tool because then you can have all different values depending on 2 different input rasters on a grid cell by grid cell comparison.